Story 1. My name is Thomas Reed, and for almost 4 years I worked overnight security at a corporate office complex just outside the city. It wasn't exciting work. 4 buildings, 3 parking garages, nearly empty offices after 6 in the evening. Most nights were spent staring at monitors, walking quiet hallways, and drinking coffee that tasted like burned plastic. I took the job because it paid decently and because I liked quiet spaces. There's something peaceful about empty buildings. No conversations echoing off walls, no phones ringing, just air conditioning hum in your own footsteps. That's why I noticed immediately when camera 17 appeared. I knew every camera by heart. Camera 1 watched the main lobby. Camera 3 covered the loading dock. Camera 5 faced the west stairwell. Camera 12 sat above the south emergency exit. We had 16 cameras total, always had. So when I glanced at the monitor around 2:30 a.m. and saw 17 feeds instead of 16, it stood out. At first, I assumed IT had installed a new camera without notifying security. It wouldn't have been the first time, but something about it felt off. Camera 17 didn't have a label, no location tag, just a small gray box with a live black and white feed. The image showed a hallway, white walls, gray carpet, fluorescent lights spaced evenly overhead, doors on both sides. It looked similar to our 3rd floor east corridor, but not quite. That hallway only had offices on one side. This one had doors lining both walls. I clicked on the camera to pull up its details. Nothing came up. No serial number, no install date, no IP address, just the feed. I frowned and leaned closer to the screen. The angle was strange. The camera was mounted low, barely 4 feet off the ground, tilted upward slightly. None of our cameras were installed that way. I radioed maintenance. No response. I logged the issue and decided to check it physically. I grabbed my flashlight and headed out for a patrol. The 3rd floor east wing was quiet. Lights on, doors locked. Nothing unusual, no new cameras, no unfamiliar hallways. I walked every floor, every stairwell. Nothing matched the feed. Back in the security room, camera 17 was still there. Same hallway, same lighting, same distorted exit sign at the far end. I sat down slowly. That's when I noticed something else. The hallway on camera 17 didn't have baseboards. Every corridor in our building had brown wooden trim along the floor. This one didn't. The walls met the carpet directly. It was subtle, easy to miss, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I stared at the feed for several minutes. Nothing moved. No shadows, no flickering lights. Just empty hallway. I convinced myself it was a software glitch. Ghost feed. Crossed signals. It happens. I finished my shift and went home. The next night, camera 17 was still there. Same hallway, same angle, same lack of identifying data. I zoomed in this time. The image quality degraded slightly, as if the feed didn't like being examined too closely. I noticed the doors didn't have numbers. Just blank wooden panels with silver handles. No signage, no fire extinguishers, no artwork. Our hallways had safety posters every 20 feet. This one was sterile, bare. I called IT. They told me no new cameras had been installed. They couldn't see camera 17 on their system. According to their network, it didn't exist, but it was right there on my screen. On the 4th night, something changed. I was sipping coffee when movement appeared at the far end of camera 17's hallway. A shape stepped partially into view. Tall, thin. Too far away to make out details, it stood motionless, facing the camera. I leaned forward. My heart began to beat faster. The figure didn't sway, didn't breathe, didn't adjust its posture, it just stood there. I switched to another camera, then back to 17. The hallway was empty again. I chalked it up to digital artifacting, compression errors. But over the next week, camera 17 became more active. Sometimes lights flickered. Sometimes doors appeared slightly open. Once I saw what looked like wet footprints on the carpet. No patrol ever found anything. No other camera ever picked up movement. And slowly I began to dread checking that feed. Not because it showed something terrifying, but because it felt like something was waiting. On the 7th night, my radio crackled while I was watching camera 17. Static. Then a voice whispered, "You're finally paying attention." I froze. The voice didn't come from the radio, it came from behind me. I didn't turn around right away. When the voice spoke behind me, my body locked in place. Every muscle went tight at once, like my nervous system had hit a wall. The security room was small. 2 desks, a rack of monitors, a coffee machine humming quietly in the corner. There was nowhere for anyone to hide. Slowly, I swiveled my chair. The room was empty. My radio sat on the desk exactly where I'd left it. The door was closed. I stood up, heart pounding, and checked the hallway outside the security office. Nothing. I locked the door behind me and returned to the monitors. Camera 17 was still live. The hallway was empty again. But something had changed. The camera angle had shifted slightly. It was higher now, as if someone had adjusted it. I felt a wave of cold crawl up my arms. I reviewed the footage. No record of the camera moving, no log entries, no activity. I tried to disconnect camera 17 from the system. It didn't respond. I tried rebooting the entire monitoring software. All cameras reset except 17. It stayed. That was when I noticed a detail I wish I never had. The perspective. Camera 17 wasn't mounted to a wall anymore. It was moving, very slowly, forward. The hallway on screen began passing beneath it, not like a wheeled camera, not smooth. There was a subtle vertical bobbing, like footsteps. The feed wasn't coming from a mounted camera, it was coming from something walking. My radio crackled, then my own voice played back through it, not delayed, not distorted, exactly my voice. "Security check. 3rd floor east wing." That was something I'd said earlier in the night during patrol. My throat went dry. Camera 17 turned. The hallway curved. Doors passed on either side, and then I saw something that made my knees buckle. At the far end of the feed was the security office, my office. I could see the blue glow of the monitors through the doorway. I could see myself sitting at the desk. From behind, camera 17 was watching me. I staggered backward. The office lights dimmed. The air grew cold. Not draft cold, dead cold. The door handle behind me moved, slowly, without turning. My reflection appeared in the black screen of a powered-down monitor. But there was something else behind it, tall, thin. Its outline didn't hold steady. It shifted like heat distortion. "You shouldn't have looked for the source," it said softly. Its voice came from every speaker at once. "You gave it shape." I spun around. It stood in the doorway. Its limbs bent wrong. Its torso stretched too long. Where a face should have been was only a smooth surface, gently rippling. The walls groaned. Ceiling tiles flexed. The building itself seemed to inhale. "You watch empty spaces," it continued. "You listen to quiet rooms. You make yourself small." It stepped forward. The lights flickered violently. Every monitor turned to camera 17. Every screen showed the same hallway. And in every feed I was visible, standing alone. "You let the building learn you," it said. Pressure built behind my eyes. Memories began slipping away. Small things first, passwords, phone numbers, then larger pieces, my childhood street, my sister's laugh. I screamed and threw the radio at it. The device passed straight through its body and shattered against the wall. The momentary distraction was enough. I ran. I burst through the fire exit and sprinted down the stairwell, taking steps 2 at a time. Behind me, I heard movement. Not chasing, following. Like something walking through walls instead of hallways. I reached the lobby and smashed through the front doors. Cold night air hit me like a slap. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove until sunrise. I didn't report back. I didn't call dispatch. I quit that morning. Facilities claim no camera 17 ever existed. IT logs showed 16 cameras, always 16. No extra footage, no system errors, nothing. 2 months later, I heard through a former coworker that my replacement lasted 3 shifts. He resigned without explanation. They hired another guard. He didn't finish his first week. Now the building sits empty. The company relocated. The cameras were removed. Sometimes late at night, my phone lights up with a notification. No app, no number, just a gray square. For half a second. Then gone. And every time I remember what it said. You let the building learn you.
Story 2. My name is Aaron Cole, and I worked night security at a medical research facility for nearly 3 years. Unlike office buildings, hospitals never truly sleep. Even after visiting hours end, machines continue to hum. Backup generators cycle quietly. Emergency lighting glows faintly in long corridors. The building breathes. That was the first thing they told me during training. Listen to the building. I took the overnight shift because it paid better and because I preferred quiet. Fewer people meant fewer problems. My patrols were simple. Check each floor every hour, monitor cameras, log temperature readings for the lab wings, and respond to alarms if anything tripped. The research wing had 8 floors, basement parking, ground-level lobby, 6 floors of labs and offices, and 1 restricted level at the top. Floor 7. Only authorized staff had access there. I didn't. Security didn't. That floor belonged to long-term experimental storage. I was told never to try the elevator button for it. The elevator panel went from B to 6, no 7. At least, that's how it was supposed to be. My first month passed without incident. Second month, too. I learned the rhythm of the place. Which vents rattled. Which doors didn't latch properly. Which camera had a dead pixel in the corner. By the 3rd month, I could walk the halls with my eyes closed. That's when I noticed the elevator pause. It happened at 2:14 a.m. I was watching cameras when elevator A appeared to stop between floors. The indicator light flickered, then displayed 7. I stared. There was no 7th floor button, no 7th floor access. I rewound the footage. The elevator had been traveling upward from floor 4. It should have gone to 5. Instead, it slowed, paused. Then the indicator switched to 7. The doors didn't open. After about 30 seconds, the elevator descended back to floor 1. I called maintenance. They ran diagnostics remotely. No errors logged, no unauthorized access. They blamed sensor misalignment. I accepted that explanation. Until it happened again. And again. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Always elevator A. Always showing floor 7 for exactly 30 seconds. Never opening. Never triggering alarms. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped into elevator A during my patrol. I pressed floor 6. The doors closed. The elevator rose. Then slowed. The lights dimmed. The display changed. 7. My stomach dropped. The elevator continued upward. I hadn't pressed anything. The doors stayed closed. The temperature inside dropped sharply. My breath fogged. The hum of the cables faded. The elevator felt like it had stopped moving, yet pressure built in my ears as if we were still climbing. Then I heard something above the ceiling. Dragging. Slow. Careful. Like fingers tracing metal. The intercom crackled. My voice came through. "Aaron, you don't belong up here." My voice coming through the intercom was wrong. It wasn't distorted. It wasn't delayed. It was perfectly clear. "I didn't say that," I whispered. The elevator didn't respond. The display still showed 7. The air inside felt thick, like I was breathing through cotton. My ears popped again, harder this time, and my stomach lurched as if gravity had briefly forgotten me. Above me, something shifted. Metal creaked softly, then the dragging sound returned, slow, deliberate. I hit every button on the panel. Nothing responded, not even the emergency stop. The lights dimmed further until only the red floor indicator illuminated the cab. My radio crackled on my belt. Static poured out, followed by overlapping voices. Lab staff, doctors, security supervisors, all speaking at once. Then silence. Then my voice again. "You keep watching empty spaces." The elevator shuddered. I braced myself against the wall. The doors slid open. But it wasn't floor 7. It wasn't any floor. Beyond the doors stretched a hallway that did not belong to the building. The walls were too far apart, the ceiling too high. Fluorescent lights buzzed weakly, spaced unevenly above gray carpet that absorbed sound completely. Doors lined both sides. No numbers, no signage. Just blank metal handles. Cold air rolled into the elevator. It smelled like disinfectant and damp concrete. I stayed inside. I knew better than to step out. Every instinct screamed at me to stay put. The doors began closing. At the last second, something stopped them. A long, pale hand slid between the panels. The doors reopened. The hand withdrew. And then it stepped into view. It was tall. Too tall to fit comfortably beneath the lights. Its limbs bent wrong, elbows angled backward slightly, knees folding inward. Its body looked stretched thin, like it had been pulled apart and put back together without concern for symmetry. Its face was smooth. No eyes, no mouth. Just faint impressions where features might have once been. "You came closer," it said quietly. The voice didn't come from its body. It came from the walls, from the floor, from inside my chest. "I didn't," I whispered. "You brought me." The thing tilted its head. "No," it replied. "You noticed." The hallway lights pulsed. Some doors opened slowly. Inside them were rooms that didn't match one another. One held hospital beds with no mattresses. Another contained filing cabinets filled with blank folders. Another showed rows of monitors displaying empty hallways. My hallways. My patrol routes. "You memorize places," it continued. "You learn their sounds, their breathing. You sit alone and watch." It stepped closer. The elevator creaked under its weight. "That makes you useful." My radio burst to life. My supervisor's voice came through. "Aaron, report your status." Hope surged through me. "I'm stuck in elevator A," I shouted. "Something's wrong." My own voice interrupted. "He already told you." The supervisor's voice cut out. Static returned. The thing lifted one elongated arm. The elevator doors closed behind it. Now we were alone. The temperature dropped sharply. Frost crept along the metal walls. My breath fogged heavily. "You don't belong on 7, it said. I never pressed it. It leaned closer. "You listen for empty buildings," it whispered. "That's how we find you." Pressure built behind my eyes. Images flooded my mind. Security rooms, monitor grids, endless hallways, other guards, other buildings, other watchers, all standing alone, all listening. I felt memories slipping, My mother's face, my apartment number, the smell of coffee in the break room. "You don't need those," it said calmly. My knees buckled. I slid down against the elevator wall. The floor vibrated faintly. Somewhere far above, something heavy moved. Then the emergency alarm activated. Not the elevator alarm, the building alarm. Red lights flashed. The cab shook violently. The thing recoiled slightly. The hallway beyond flickered. My radio screeched. Maintenance had triggered a system reset. The elevator dropped, not falling, descending rapidly. The hallway dissolved into darkness. The thing blurred, its outlines stretching as if being pulled apart by motion. It reached toward me. I closed my eyes. The elevator slammed to a stop. The doors opened. Bright lobby lights flooded in. I stumbled forward onto polished tile. The lobby was normal. Security desk, waiting chairs, reception counter. 2 technicians stared at me in confusion. I collapsed. They took me to the hospital. Doctors blamed exhaustion, stress,
Sleep deprivation. Security logs showed elevator A malfunctioned briefly. No unauthorized access. No floor 7 activation. No audio recordings. I resigned 3 days later. They told me I'd imagined everything. But here's what they never explained. My access card stopped working 2 weeks after I quit. But I still receive security alerts on my phone, not emails, not texts, just silent notifications. No sender, no content, only timestamps. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. And sometimes, when I'm alone in my apartment, I hear elevators moving in buildings I no longer work in. I don't answer unknown calls. I don't ride elevators at night. Because whatever waits on 7 doesn't need buttons anymore. It only needs attention. Story 3. My name is Kevin Morris, and I worked night security at a shopping mall for almost 2 years. People don't realize how big malls feel after closing. During the day, everything is loud. Music plays from ceiling speakers, escalators hum, voices echo off tile floors. You're surrounded by motion. At night, all of that disappears. The lights dim to half power. Store gates roll down. The food court goes dark. And the echoes become your only company. My shift started at 10 p.m. Every night, I locked doors, checked alarms, and walked the same looping patrol route. East Wing, Center Atrium, West Wing, service corridors, then back to the security office. There were 4 of us total on overnight rotation, but only 1 guard worked at a time. Backup stayed on call unless something serious happened. Most nights were boring. I spent hours watching camera feeds, listening to podcasts, and walking empty corridors. Then one night, I noticed a store light was on. It was a clothing boutique on the 2nd floor. The gate was down. The interior lights were glowing faintly. That shouldn't happen. Every store had automated shutoff tied to their alarm system. I zoomed the camera. The shop was empty. No mannequins, no employees, just racks of clothes and dim overhead lighting. I radioed facilities. No response. I decided to check it myself. The escalator was shut off, so I took the stairs. As I reached the 2nd floor, the temperature dropped noticeably. Not cold enough to see breath, but enough to raise goosebumps. The hallway outside the boutique was silent. The store gate was locked. I tried the handle. Solid. I peered through the metal slats. That's when I saw movement. A shadow passed between clothing racks. Slow, deliberate. I tapped the gate. "Security," I called. No answer. I drew my flashlight and aimed it inside.
The beam reflected off mirrors lining the back wall. Something shifted again, this time closer. I stepped back. My radio crackled. Static filled the speaker. Then a voice whispered, "You left the music on." My stomach tightened. The mall's background music system had shut off hours ago. I backed away slowly. Behind me, somewhere deep in the building, I heard footsteps. Not echoes, actual footsteps. And they weren't coming from behind. They were coming from ahead. I froze in the middle of the hallway. The footsteps echoed closer, slow, measured, not rushed. I turned in a slow circle, scanning both directions. The corridor was empty. Every storefront gate was down. Emergency exit signs glowed faintly red at the far ends. My radio crackled again. This time it wasn't static. It was the mall's music. Soft instrumental tones began playing through the radio speaker. That music hadn't been active in years. They disconnected it after multiple wiring issues. I raised the radio to my ear. "Control, this is Kevin," I said. "I have movement on the second floor east wing." No response, just music. Then my own voice whispered through the speaker, "You're walking too loud." My pulse spiked. I backed toward the stairwell. Behind me, the boutique light flickered. The store gate rattled. Something pushed against it from the inside, not violently, carefully. Testing. I turned and ran. My boots slapped loudly against tile as I sprinted toward the atrium. The open central space felt wrong. Without daylight, it looked cavernous. Dark balconies stacked above me, escalators frozen in place, kiosks sat abandoned like forgotten islands. The mall lights dimmed further. Motion sensors activated ahead of me, turning on lights section by section, guiding me forward like a path. I didn't like that. I ducked into a service corridor. Concrete walls replaced storefronts. The smell of cleaning chemicals filled the air. My flashlight beam bounced off exposed pipes and electrical panels. Footsteps followed me. Not chasing, matching pace. I rounded a corner and nearly collided with a reflective surface. A mirror. One of the decorative panels from a closed cosmetics shop leaned against the wall. I saw myself in it. And something else behind me. Tall, thin. Its reflection lagged slightly behind its movement. It raised one elongated arm. I spun around. Nothing. But the mirror still showed it. My phone vibrated. A notification appeared. Mall security camera 23, motion detected. I opened the feed. It showed the atrium, from above. I could see myself standing alone, and behind me, 3 dark shapes stepped into view from different corridors. They moved like they were learning how joints worked. I dropped the phone and ran again. Emergency lights flared as alarms began triggering throughout the building. Not fire alarms, door alarms. Every exit started cycling open and closed. I heard metal gates slamming. Something heavy dragged across tile. I burst into the security office and locked the door. All camera feeds switched automatically to black and white. Every screen showed empty hallways. Except one. The boutique. The gate was now open. Inside the shop stood 5 figures. Identical. Tall. Featureless. Facing the camera. They spoke in unison. "You stayed too long." The office lights went out. Only monitor glow remained. I grabbed my keys and slammed through the back emergency exit. Cold night air hit me hard. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I drove straight to the police station. They escorted me back later. The mall was normal. Boutique lights were off. No alarms logged. No forced entries. No unusual camera footage.
They said I'd experienced panic combined with isolation. I quit the next morning. 2 weeks later, the mall permanently closed one wing. Electrical issues, structural concerns. They never reopened. Sometimes I still hear faint music in empty spaces. And sometimes, when I walk through large buildings at night, motion lights turn on ahead of me. Leading. Waiting.
I stood frozen in the middle of the aisle, flashlight trembling slightly in my hand. "You're standing in the wrong shape." The words echoed softly through my headset, even though my radio had gone silent immediately afterward. I pulled it from my belt and checked the channel. Nothing. No signal. Just dead air. I turned slowly, scanning both directions. The shelving units were still there, stacked with sealed boxes and plastic-wrapped pallets. The fluorescent lights hummed above, but their glow felt weaker now, stretched thin across too much space. I walked back the way I'd come. Or at least I tried. The aisle felt longer. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed my legs tiring before I reached the intersection. I counted steps. 1, 2, 3. By the time I reached 50, I should have been at the cross corridor. I wasn't. I kept walking. The air felt heavier with each step, like humidity without warmth. My breath sounded loud in my ears. At around 90 steps, I stopped. The shelves beside me were unfamiliar. Different labels, different dents, different stacks. But I hadn't turned. I hadn't crossed any junction. I turned around. The camera mount was gone. The wall where it had been now curved gently inward, smooth concrete flowing into itself. My stomach dropped. I tried my radio again. "Control, this is Daniel in Warehouse C. I've got disorientation and a camera issue." No reply. Only faint static. I pulled out my phone. No signal. I started walking faster. The lights flickered. Not off, just dimmer. The aisles began narrowing. Not physically collapsing, just leaning. Angles softened. Corners rounded further. Everything felt subtly melted. I reached what should have been the central loading bay. Instead, I found another aisle. Same shelving, same pallets, same repeating patterns. I stopped and marked the floor with my boot, dragging a dark line through dust. Then I walked forward. 30 steps. Another turn. And there it was again. My own boot mark. Cold washed through me. The building was looping. I wasn't walking in circles. The space itself was folding. My radio burst to life. Not voices, machinery, forklifts, beeping scanners, sounds from daytime operations, layered together, playing softly. Then my supervisor's voice came through. "Daniel, you missed a turn." "Where are you?" I demanded. There was a pause. Then he answered. "Inside." I felt something move beneath the concrete, not shaking, sliding, like massive weight shifting deep below the foundation. The shelves creaked in response. I turned slowly. At the far end of the aisle, a figure stood between two racks, not fully visible, just the outline of shoulders, long arms hanging too low. It didn't move, didn't sway. It simply occupied space. I raised my flashlight. The beam weakened halfway down the aisle. The light faded before it reached the figure. The darkness swallowed it. "You don't fit," my supervisor's voice said softly through the radio. "That's why it noticed you." The figure stepped forward. Its movement was wrong. Not walking. Rearranging. It didn't lift its feet. The space around it shifted instead, carrying it closer.
The shelves bent inward slightly as it passed. I backed away. Every instinct told me to run, but there was nowhere to run that meant anything. I turned and sprinted. Boxes blurred past. My boots slapped against concrete. The warehouse moaned. I felt pressure build behind my eyes again. Images flashed through my mind. Blueprints, floor plans, empty rectangles. Then nothing but curves. I burst through a doorway. Cold night air slammed into my face. I stumbled outside into the yard between warehouses, gasping. Warehouse C loomed behind me, silent and ordinary-looking under floodlights. Rectangular, sharp corners. Normal. My watch showed only 3 minutes had passed, but I felt exhausted, shaking. I called it in. Maintenance found nothing. Camera C14 was functioning normally. No orientation issues, no radio logs, no missing time. They told me I'd had a panic episode. I took the rest of the night off. But when I returned the next evening, Warehouse C had been removed from the patrol map. No explanation. Just gone. And my supervisor wouldn't meet my eyes anymore.
They told me Warehouse C had been temporarily decommissioned. No alarms, no patrols, no cameras. The building still stood on the property, but it was no longer part of my route. I was instructed not to enter it. No paperwork, no incident report, just a verbal directive during shift change. My supervisor wouldn't explain further. He kept his eyes on his clipboard the entire time. For the next 3 nights, everything felt wrong. The yard between the warehouses seemed larger. The distances between buildings stretched subtly. My patrol routes took longer even though my step counter showed the same numbers. I caught myself forgetting small things. Where I'd placed my flashlight, which door I'd checked last. Once I stood in front of Warehouse B for nearly a minute before realizing I was facing the wrong building. And every time I passed Warehouse C, I felt pressure behind my eyes, like something inside my skull was being gently pressed. On the 4th night after the incident, I heard movement from inside Warehouse C. It was just after 2 a.m. I was checking fence sensors when my radio crackled. Not with voices, with footsteps, concrete echoes, slow, dragging sounds. Then my own breathing. I turned toward Warehouse C. One of its side doors was open. I hadn't been authorized to enter. I knew I shouldn't go near it. But something about that open door felt personal, like it had been opened specifically for me. I approached slowly. My flashlight beam barely reached inside. The interior was dark. No emergency lighting. No hum of electrical systems. Just black space. "You don't have to keep pretending," my supervisor's voice whispered through the radio. "You already learned the shape." I stepped inside. The door closed behind me. Not slammed, not locked, just closed. The darkness was immediate and complete. My flashlight turned on by itself. The beam revealed curved walls. No corners, no ceiling. Just smooth concrete flowing upward and outward endlessly. The floor sloped gently downward. The shelves were gone. The pallets were gone. There was no warehouse anymore. I was inside something hollow. The air was cold and damp. The sound of distant shifting filled the space. Not echoing. Moving. The light showed faint impressions in the walls. Hand shapes, footprints, faces pressed from the inside, all blurred as if the concrete were soft. "You stayed long enough," the voice said. Not my supervisor's now. Something deeper, slower. "You watched long enough." Pressure built behind my eyes again. Memories began draining. My home address, my mother's name, my first day on the job. I tried to scream. No sound came out.
The walls pulsed. The floor rippled beneath my boots. Something moved toward me through the structure itself, not walking, spreading. I felt my body growing light, thin, like I was being stretched across space. Images flooded my vision. Other buildings, other guards, empty spaces learning their shapes, learning how people move, learning how people think. "You fit now," it said. The flashlight went out. I fell, not downward, inward. Then I woke up outside, curled in the gravel between Warehouse B and where Warehouse C had been. Morning sunlight burned my eyes. My radio lay beside me, silent. Warehouse C was gone, not boarded, not demolished. Gone. Just cracked asphalt and weeds where it had stood. Security logs showed I'd clocked out at 2:13 a.m. No record of me entering any building. No incident reports. No door alerts. They terminated my contract quietly, cited mental health concerns. I didn't fight it. I don't work security anymore. I avoid large, empty buildings. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I feel corners smoothing, edges dissolving, spaces remembering. Because once something learns your shape, it never forgets.